Simon Cowell had built his identity on precision, control, and an almost unshakable sense of judgment. For years, the world knew him as the man who could reduce a performance to its core in seconds, someone whose approval was rare and whose honesty was often sharper than kindness. Yet life has a way of rewriting even the most fixed roles. Behind the image of the confident television figure, a quieter story was unfolding, one that had nothing to do with talent shows or entertainment empires. It was a story about becoming a father, and how that experience slowly reshaped everything he thought he knew about success, patience, and love. What began as a personal chapter soon became a deep internal transformation. The public saw brief glimpses of change, softer interviews, warmer moments, but the real shift happened away from cameras. It was not sudden, nor dramatic in a visible sense, but gradual, like a tide changing the shape of the shore. Fatherhood did not erase who he was. Instead, it expanded him into something more complex. The world often reduces people to their strongest traits, but life rarely works that simply. In Simon's case, the strength that once defined him as a judge began to evolve into something quieter and more protective. The story of this transformation is not about fame or public image, but about a man learning that some of life's most meaningful lessons do not arrive in applause, but in silence, responsibility, and the steady presence of someone who depends on you completely. It is within that shift that a different version of Simon Cowell began to emerge, one shaped not by critique, but by care. A Valentine's Day that changed everything. On a Valentine's Day in 2014, Simon Cowell's life took a turn he could never have fully prepared for. The arrival of his son, Eric, marked a moment that was far removed from the world of television studios and flashing lights. It was deeply personal, quiet in its intensity, and profoundly grounding. For someone who had often spoken with certainty about not expecting fatherhood later in life, the experience brought an unexpected emotional clarity. What surprised him most was not just the presence of a child, but the immediate emotional connection that followed. In that moment, preconceived ideas about independence, routine, and personal freedom began to shift. The responsibilities of fatherhood did not feel like an obligation, but rather a redefinition of purpose. The early days were filled with adjustment, as new rhythms replaced old habits. Sleep schedules, gentle routines, and simple moments of care began to shape his daily life. It was no longer about managing shows or guiding careers, but about something far more intimate and constant. Even the smallest actions carried weight, from holding a tiny hand to recognizing subtle expressions that carried meaning without words. The transformation was not about abandoning his previous identity, but about discovering another layer of it. In time, this new role became central, not secondary. It influenced decisions, priorities, and even the way he viewed success itself. What once seemed important in public life gradually became less defining than the quiet, consistent presence required in private life. Fatherhood had arrived not as a disruption, but as a recalibration of everything he thought he understood about meaning and connection, becoming a father beyond expectation. Before becoming a parent, Simon Cowell often spoke with certainty about his lifestyle and long-established independence. He had built routines around work, travel, and creative control, and it seemed unlikely that anything would significantly alter that structure. Yet fatherhood has a way of reshaping even the most fixed perspectives. When Eric entered his life, the change was not simply about responsibility, but about perception. Everyday experiences began to carry new significance. Simple routines such as morning care, quiet time at home, or shared observation of small discoveries became meaningful in ways that could not be anticipated beforehand. The idea of time itself shifted, no longer measured solely by professional milestones, but by personal growth and shared moments. There was a learning curve that came with this transition, not in a technical sense, but in an emotional one. Patience became more important than precision, and understanding replaced immediate judgment. It was a process of adjustment rather than reinvention. What made it more profound was the realization that connection does not always follow expectation. Sometimes it arrives quietly, without preparation, and changes everything without demanding attention. Simon's experience reflected that truth. The presence of his son gradually redefined what it meant to be present, not just physically, but emotionally. In that shift, he began to see life through a different lens. one that valued consistency over performance. This was not a departure from who he was, but an expansion into a version of himself shaped by care, observation, and responsibility. Fatherhood became less about a role and more about a continuous process of learning and adaptation, a name carrying legacy and meaning. The decision to name his son Eric carried emotional weight that went beyond simple preference. It was a quiet tribute, a way of honoring family history and personal connection. Names often serve as bridges between generations, and in this case, it reflected a sense of continuity that Simon deeply valued. The choice was not made lightly, but with reflection on the people and memories that had shaped his own life. In many ways, it symbolized the blending of past and present, where personal legacy meets new beginnings. As Eric grew, the meaning of his name took on additional layers, not as a symbol of expectation, but as a reminder of connection. What mattered most was not the name itself, but the relationship it represented. Fatherhood transformed the concept of legacy from something abstract into something lived daily. It was no longer about what one leaves behind, but about what one nurtures in the present. Each interaction, each shared moment, contributed to that living legacy in a way that no public achievement could replicate. Over time, the significance of the name became less about heritage and more about identity formed through experience. In this way, Eric's presence became a continuation of something personal, yet entirely his own. The idea of legacy shifted from permanence to presence, from what is remembered to what is experienced in real time. Through this perspective, fatherhood became a grounding force, connecting past influences with present responsibilities in a continuous and evolving narrative that quietly shaped everyday life. Noticing the world differently through a child's rhythm. As Eric grew, subtle differences in how he engaged with the world began to shape Simon's understanding of parenting in unexpected ways. Early childhood development is rarely linear, and every child follows their own rhythm of discovery and expression. What stood out was not comparison, but observation. There were moments of quiet focus, strong visual awareness, and unique responses to sensory experiences that encouraged deeper reflection. Instead of rushing toward assumptions, Simon found himself paying closer attention to patterns and behaviors that revealed how individual and varied childhood development can be. Parenting, in this sense, became less about expectation and more about attentive presence. The world that once felt predictable began to appear more nuanced. Small details, such as how Eric reacted to sound or engaged with interaction, became meaningful insights rather than concerns. This shift encouraged a more thoughtful approach to understanding growth, where patience replaced urgency. It was not about labeling differences, but about recognizing individuality. In this process, Simon began to see parenting not as a fixed guidebook, but as a continuous learning experience shaped by observation and care. Each day offered new understanding, not through conclusions, but through experience. This evolving awareness deepened the bond between father and son, creating a relationship built on attentiveness rather than expectation. It also highlighted an important truth about parenting itself, that every child communicates in their own way, and understanding often begins with listening beyond words, a shifting definition of success. As Simon Cowell stepped further into fatherhood, something fundamental began to change inside his understanding of success. For years, success had been measurable, almost mathematical in its clarity. It was ratings, record sales, audience reactions, and the sharp approval or rejection of performances under studio lights. Everything had a score, a reaction, a visible outcome. But life at home with a child did not follow that structure. There were no charts for progress, no immediate applause, and no clear markers that confirmed achievement in real time. Instead, success became something quieter and far less predictable. It was found in small moments that could not be scheduled or forced, like a shared smile, a moment of calm connection, or a simple attempt at communication that carried more meaning than any public recognition. Over time, this shift began to reshape how Simon evaluated not only his personal life, but also his professional instincts. He started to recognize that the most meaningful progress is often invisible to the outside world. Unlike television formats that thrive on instant judgment, real life requires patience and continuity. In that space, expectations softened and observation deepened. What once seemed like a lack of measurable progress revealed itself as a different kind of growth entirely. It was not less valuable, just less visible. This realization did not diminish his past achievements, but it reframed them within a broader understanding of what it means to build a life. Success was no longer just about impact on audiences, but about presence within a personal world that demanded consistency, empathy, and attention in ways no stage ever had. Learning patience through everyday life. Patience is often spoken about as a virtue, but it is rarely understood until it is tested in the rhythm of everyday life. For Simon Cowell, fatherhood became that test in the most natural and unavoidable way. The structured environment of television production, where timing and outcomes are controlled, contrasted sharply with the unpredictable flow of parenting. Days at home could not be edited or adjusted for convenience. They unfolded in real time, requiring a steady presence rather than a directive approach. This shift gradually taught him that patience is not passive waiting, but active understanding. It involves observing, adjusting, and allowing space for development without forcing outcomes. Moments that once might have been viewed through a lens of urgency began to take on a different quality. Instead of reacting quickly, there was a growing tendency to pause and understand the context behind behaviors and responses. This approach did not come naturally at first, especially for someone accustomed to making fast, decisive judgments. However, over time, repetition and experience created a new rhythm. Patience became part of the environment itself, woven into daily routines and interactions. It changed the atmosphere of the home, making it less about control and more about cooperation. In this space, learning was mutual rather than one-directional. Fatherhood, in this sense, became a quiet education in slowing down, observing more deeply, and accepting that growth often unfolds in its own time. What emerged was not just a change in behavior, but a fundamental shift in perspective, the quiet strength behind protective love. As Eric grew, Simon found himself developing a form of strength that was different from the one he was known for publicly. On television, strength had always been associated with directness, clarity, and the ability to deliver judgment without hesitation. At home, however, strength took on a more protective and understated form. It was no longer about critique, but about creating stability. This kind of strength does not draw attention to itself. It is expressed in decisions made quietly, in adjustments to daily life that prioritize comfort, safety, and emotional balance. It is also found in the willingness to step back from external demands in order to maintain a steady environment at home. Over time, this protective instinct became a central part of Simon's role as a father. It influenced how he structured his time, how he approached public commitments, and how he responded to the needs of his family. Rather than being defined by visibility, this strength was defined by consistency. It required awareness of subtle changes, sensitivity to environment, and the ability to respond without overwhelming pressure. In many ways, it was a quieter form of resilience, one that does not seek recognition, but exists for the benefit of someone else's well-being. This shift also highlighted how love can manifest in practical decisions as much as emotional expression. Protection, in this context, was not about restriction, but about creating space where growth could happen safely and naturally. It was a strength measured not by external validation, but by internal commitment and steady presence. When public life meets private responsibility, balancing public life with private responsibility is rarely simple, especially when both demand attention in very different ways. For Simon Cowell, this balance became increasingly significant after becoming a father. The entertainment industry operates on visibility, timing, and constant engagement, while family life requires stability, privacy, and emotional presence. These two worlds often exist in tension with one another, requiring careful navigation. As responsibilities at home grew, decisions about work began to take on new meaning. Opportunities were no longer evaluated solely on professional value, but also on how they aligned with personal priorities. This did not mean withdrawing from public life, but rather redefining its place within a broader structure. Travel, schedules, and commitments were adjusted to ensure that time at home remained consistent and meaningful. This process was not about separation, but about integration, finding a way for both aspects of life to coexist without overwhelming one another. Over time, this balance became more intuitive, guided by experience rather than strict planning. What emerged was a more sustainable approach to both career and family, where neither was ignored, but neither dominated completely. This shift also brought a deeper awareness of how public perception often differs from private reality. While audiences may see only select moments, the reality behind them is shaped by countless unseen decisions and adjustments. In this way, balancing both worlds became an ongoing practice of alignment, reflection, and prioritization, understanding individuality without comparison. One of the most profound lessons that emerged through fatherhood was the understanding that individuality cannot be measured through comparison. In a world that often evaluates progress through standardized expectations, it is easy to overlook the uniqueness of personal development. Parenting challenged that assumption in a direct and continuous way. Rather than viewing growth through external benchmarks, Simon began to recognize the importance of internal progress. This meant observing without comparison and understanding without expectation. Each child experiences the world in a way that is shaped by their own perception, pace, and interaction. Recognizing this required letting go of pre-existing ideas about what development should look like and focusing instead on what it actually is. This shift in perspective created space for deeper appreciation of small milestones that might otherwise be overlooked. It also reinforced the idea that progress is not always linear or visible in conventional terms. Instead, it can appear in subtle shifts, repeated patterns, or quiet moments of connection. Over time, this approach fostered a more grounded and realistic understanding of growth. It also reduced unnecessary pressure, replacing it with attentiveness and acceptance. In this context, individuality became not a deviation from expectation, but a natural expression of human diversity. This realization extended beyond parenting and began to influence broader perspectives on people, performance, and success. It highlighted the importance of seeing beyond comparison and valuing experience as it is, rather than how it is expected to be. The emotional weight of unspoken understanding. Not all communication relies on words. In many parent and child relationships, especially in early development, understanding often takes shape through nonverbal cues. Over time, Simon Cowell experienced this in a deeply personal way. He began to recognize patterns of expression that did not require verbal explanation to carry meaning. A gesture, a look, or a change in behavior could communicate more than conversation sometimes could. This form of understanding requires attention and emotional sensitivity, as it depends on interpretation rather than direct instruction. It also creates a unique form of connection that is deeply personal and difficult to replicate in other contexts. In this space, emotional awareness becomes central. Instead of relying on explanation, there is a reliance on presence and observation. This does not mean absence of communication, but rather a broader definition of how communication can exist. Over time, this created a bond that was less about instruction and more about mutual recognition. It also reinforced the idea that connection does not always need clarity in words to be meaningful. Sometimes, understanding exists in silence, in shared moments of calm, or in the simple awareness of being together. This realization added a new dimension to fatherhood, one that emphasized emotional depth over verbal expression. It also highlighted the complexity of relationships that are built not on explanation, but on shared experience and attentiveness, redefining home as a space of adaptation. As fatherhood became central to Simon Cowell's life, the concept of home began to evolve beyond its physical definition. It was no longer just a place of residence, but an environment that adapted to the needs of its most important member. This transformation required thoughtful adjustments to routine, structure, and atmosphere. Rather than maintaining rigid systems, the home became more responsive, shaped by daily experience and observation. This meant creating consistency where it was needed, while also allowing flexibility where appropriate. Over time, this approach turned the home into a space that prioritized comfort, predictability, and emotional balance. It was not about restriction, but about thoughtful design that supported well-being. This shift also reflected a deeper understanding of how environment influences development and emotional stability. Small changes in routine, layout, or interaction patterns could have significant impact on daily experience. In this sense, home became an active participant in growth rather than a passive setting. It also became a place where adaptation was continuous, guided by observation and care. This process required ongoing attention, as needs evolve over time and require different responses. Through this, the idea of home expanded into something more dynamic and responsive, shaped not by static design, but by lived experience and evolving understanding. The unseen effort behind stability. What the public rarely sees in stories of fame and recognition is the consistent, unseen effort that maintains stability behind the scenes. For Simon Cowell, fatherhood introduced a dimension of effort that was not visible to audiences or media. It involved planning, adjustment, and constant awareness of daily needs that do not appear in public narratives. This kind of effort does not seek acknowledgement, because its purpose is not performance but continuity. It exists in routines that are carefully maintained, decisions that are quietly made, and environments that are carefully structured. Over time, this created a foundation that supported both personal and professional life. While the entertainment world often highlights visible achievements, the reality of sustaining a balanced life depends on these quieter contributions. They are not dramatic, but they are essential. This perspective also shifted how effort itself was understood. It was no longer measured only by visible outcomes, but by consistency over time. In this way, stability became an achievement in itself, built through attention, care, and ongoing commitment. It is in this space that the deeper meaning of responsibility becomes clear, not as a single act, but as a continuous practice that shapes everyday life in subtle but significant ways. Accepting uncertainty with quiet confidence, parenting often brings with it a sense of uncertainty, as each stage of development unfolds in its own way. For Simon Cowell, this uncertainty became part of the lived experience of fatherhood. Instead of seeking complete control over outcomes, there was a gradual acceptance that not everything can be predicted or directed. This does not mean absence of concern, but rather a shift in how uncertainty is approached. Over time, uncertainty became less of a source of anxiety and more of a natural part of growth. It encouraged adaptability, attentiveness, and a willingness to respond rather than control. This mindset does not eliminate challenges, but it changes the relationship to them. Instead of resisting unpredictability, there is an effort to understand it within context. This approach fosters resilience not through certainty, but through flexibility. It also allows space for unexpected moments of progress that might otherwise be overlooked. In this way, uncertainty becomes part of the process rather than an obstacle to it. It shapes a form of confidence that is not rigid, but responsive. This quiet confidence is built over time, through experience, reflection, and continuous engagement with change. The balance between expectation and reality. One of the most challenging aspects of fatherhood is the gap between expectation and reality. Before becoming a parent, many ideas are shaped by imagination, observation, or cultural narratives. However, lived experience often reveals a more complex and nuanced reality. For Simon Cowell, this meant adjusting expectations to align with lived experience rather than preconceived ideas. This adjustment required flexibility and openness to change. Instead of holding on to fixed outcomes, there was a gradual shift toward accepting reality as it unfolds. This does not diminish hope or intention, but it redefines how they are applied. In this space, expectations become more adaptable, shaped by experience rather than assumption. Over time, this balance creates a more grounded approach to parenting, where reality is not measured against idealized versions, but understood on its own terms. This shift also encourages emotional resilience, as it reduces unnecessary pressure and allows for more authentic engagement with daily life. Growth found in quiet repetition. Growth is often associated with change, but it is equally present in repetition. In the daily rhythms of parenting, repetition becomes a foundation for learning and connection. For Simon Cowell, this meant engaging in routines that, while simple, carried deep significance over time. Repeated actions create familiarity, stability, and trust. They form the structure within which development can occur naturally. Over time, These repetitions build patterns of understanding that are not immediately visible, but deeply meaningful. This kind of growth is subtle, emerging through consistency rather than change. It reflects the idea that progress is not always about doing something new, but about being present in what is already there. Through repetition, connection deepens, awareness strengthens, and understanding becomes more intuitive. This quiet form of growth often goes unnoticed, yet it forms the foundation of lasting relationships, the unseen language of connection. Connection does not always require spoken language. In many relationships, especially between parent and child, understanding develops through shared presence and nonverbal communication. Simon Cowell experienced this in a way that reshaped how connection itself was understood. Small gestures, shared routines, and moments of mutual awareness became meaningful forms of interaction. This language is not taught, but developed through experience. It relies on attention, sensitivity, and recognition of subtle cues. Over time, it creates a form of communication that is deeply personal and unique to each relationship. This unseen language highlights the richness of human connection beyond words. It also reinforces the idea that understanding can exist in many forms, not all of which are verbal or explicit. In this space, connection becomes less about explanation and more about presence. A life reshaped, but not replaced. Fatherhood did not replace Simon Cowell's previous identity. It reshaped it. The qualities that defined him professionally remained, but they were now balanced by a deeper sense of personal responsibility. This combination created a more layered and grounded perspective on life. Instead of separating roles, there was integration. Professional experience and personal growth began to inform one another. Over time, this created a more complete understanding of both success and fulfillment. Life was no longer divided into separate categories, but experienced as a continuous whole. This reshaping did not diminish his past, but it added depth to his present. Love, as the quiet foundation of change. At the center of this entire transformation lies love, not as a dramatic expression, but as a steady and continuous presence. It is not defined by moments of intensity, but by consistency, care, and attention over time. For Simon Cowell, love became the quiet foundation upon which all change was built. It influenced decisions, shaped priorities, and redefined meaning. This kind of love does not demand recognition, but it transforms everything it touches. It is through this steady presence that the most profound changes in life often occur, the story that continues beyond the spotlight. While public attention often focuses on visible moments, the deeper story of fatherhood continues beyond the spotlight. It is a story that unfolds in private spaces, in daily routines, and in quiet experiences that rarely reach public view. For Simon Cowell, this ongoing journey remains shaped by growth, learning, and presence. It is not a completed narrative, but an evolving one, defined not by conclusion, but by continuity.